Welcome back, people of the Most High God, Jesus Christ. So this right here is gonna be a part two of of the explanation of how Satan fell when he was created perfect. So we're gonna be examining Ezekiel 28, starting at verse 11. We're gonna be examining the Jewish text, right? Okay, so if you haven't seen the part one to this, you might want to watch that so you can have a complete understanding. But let's get into this, right? So it says, the word of Adonai came to me, human being, raise a lament for the king to the king of Zor, and tell him that Adonai Elohim says, you put the seal on perfection. You were full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God, right? So let's pause right here, right? We see that Satan, previously known as Lucifer, he was in the garden, right? He was in the Garden of Eden, right? So let's make that mental note, right? So keep going down. It says he was covered with all kinds of precious stones, carnelians, topaz, diamonds, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphires, green feldspar, emeralds. Your pendants and jewels were made of gold. So he was a fancy creature. Prepared the day you were created. You were a cherub, which means cherub. Notice this, protecting a large region, right? Okay, we're going to come back to that. I placed you on God's holy mountain. You walked back and forth among the stones of fire, right? So we can draw from this, right? Let's draw some conclusions. We know that he was in the Garden of Eden, right? But he was also amongst the he was also up on God's holy mountain, right? Which is on the farthest sides of the north, right? So we can conclude that that the Garden of Eden and and where God's throne was at were in the same place. We're in the same place and on the same dimensional plane, right? Because I would take it that God would come down from his mountain and walk the garden in the cool of the day, right? That was his ritual. That was his thing, right? He used to come down off his mountain and look for Adam and Eve in the garden, right? So it says you are a cherub protecting a large region, right? So we can conclude that Lucifer, now known as Satan, was given a dominion over a portion of the earth, right? It looks like so you can say that he had his dominion was Eden and maybe some other portions, right? But he had a large he was he was king over a large region, right? I guess this is where you get the king of Tyre from, right? He had dominion over the Garden of Eden, right? Okay, so let's keep reading. So it says, I placed you on God's holy mountain. You walked back and forth among the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created, until unrighteousness was found in you. When your commerce grew, you became filled with violence, and in this way you sinned. Therefore I have thrown you out, defiled from the mountain of God. I have destroyed you, protecting cherub from amongst the stones of fire. Your heart grew proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. But I have thrown you on the ground before kings. I have made you a spectacle. By your many crimes, okay, now you can pay attention. By your many crimes and dishonest trading, you have profaned your sanctuaries, right? Okay, so let's think about this, right? It's clearly showing here that you could basically say that, like they say that Lucifer used to be the one that was the leader of worship, right? So it would seem that he had churches. They had churches of worship uh before Adam sinned. They I guess it looks to be that he basically had sanctuaries on this earth, and because of his pride, he basically started, I mean, pretty much preaching the wrong gospel, I guess you could say, right? So Satan was the first leader of worship. He was the first pastor. He was the first pastor gone bad, I guess you could say. So but keep that in mind, right? It says many crimes and dishonest trading, right? Meaning his crimes all have to do with this dishonest trading, right? Now, when you think of trading, think about an exchange, right? I believe it was a man that passed away named pastor named Stephen Darby that said words are currency in the spirit world, right? So if you go back to the previous video where we revealed that Satan harnessed the power of the darkness, right? Which sin became his merchandise, right? And he was his the slander was what he was trading, right? He was it was an exchange of words of slander between him and the rest of his church that he was supposed to be leading, right? Because like we said, we see here that it said you have profaned your sanctuaries, right? So let's see what else to say. Okay, so we can pretty much conclude that Satan, he was in the Garden of Eden, which was dimensionally connected to on the same dimensional plane as God's holy mountain, right? So if you think about this, right, he was going around trading, right? He was going around exchanging slander, right? Trading